What is up, everybody? Joe Sib here with you from Rad Parenting with my co-host
Anea Bo.
And we are hanging.
Yeah, we're chilling, like, for real.
Yeah, we are. Did we just say hanging and chilling at the beginning of our show?
We did, because that's who we are today.
We are. Sometimes we are. Sometimes we are. Hey, this show is all about expectations, managing expectations, because I always hear everyone talk about managing their personal expectations, whether it's in their career, whether it's, hey, I'm trying to lose some weight. Well, hey, get the right expectations. Or, even with, I would say in your marriage,
Sure.
I know that when my wife and I got together, I had all of my expectations of what a marriage was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And she had hers. And then as you go along, and we've been together 18 years, you realize that those expectations are different than really the reality of being married.
Yeah, it's also interesting too, the word expectations versus, say, criteria. Like when I do work with girls and women around relationship and creating healthy relationships, we always talk about creating your relationship criteria, meaning here are a list, or you could call it guidelines. Like, here's what is important to me in a relationship. When you do that with especially girls early on, it gives them a place to, like, refer back to and be like, oh, wow, I'm not sure how I ended up here. Like 10 of my lists of criteria are missing, whatever. But with expectation, that word, we're really talking about, like, this is my bar. This is what I'm looking for in order to be happy, content, to have a measure for whether I'm doing well at work, whether my relationship or my marriage is going well, whether my parent-child relationship is what it should be. And we've all sort of heard that old adage about, expectation sets us up for disappointment because we're human.
And when it comes to parenting, which today I was like, I want to place that question on parenting. The expectations that I put on myself, the expectations that our listeners put on themselves, because you just said something that, if you have crazy expectations, you set yourself up for failure. And none of us want to have failure when it comes to raising our kids. So today, what I wanted to throw out there on the table was where our expectations come from. How are they actually born into our mind? Is it from the media? Is it from our own parents? Which I think the answer to that probably is both.
Yep.
But also just managing the expectations, and for myself, it'd be the expectations of being a father in 2016.
Yeah.
Because I feel that when I started this journey 15 years ago, I had one idea of what a dad is. And now that I'm 15 years into the game, I have a different idea of what a dad is. And what I thought was important kind of really wasn't. And what I didn't think was important has ended up being the most important part of being a dad. And the thing that I got to go into today is the opportunity to, when the real parenting comes down. And I always use, I'm a huge fan of the movie, like Rocky, because it's, or like Field of Dreams. Like, I love all those, like, oh my gosh, like, it really happened. And I think for me that with parenting, these expectations I set on myself were like out of these fictional characters that didn't exist, and you're like, hey man, your real life doesn't work that way.
Well, yeah. And I think that, so just to be, and I'm, a big dreamer. And I believe in the beauty and the way that movies like the ones you mentioned and things that we see in a fictional context can really inspire us, because they move something in us. That's important. And they can help us move beyond, maybe limitations that we see for those, for people that come out of homes that were not particularly well functioning, or their parents had a really unhealthy relationship or whatever. It's a big struggle to say, like, I need to know that something more is possible, or I'm not so sure I want to have kids. And so that, I don't think we need to dismiss the beauty and the importance of having certain sort of ideals presented through media. That being said, in an age of everywhere media, we as, certainly our generation have had access to media our entire lives. Certainly not what our children now have, but it's been sort of omnipresent. And it sets us up to go, oh, so that's the way that it's supposed to be. And of course, in a media context, my gosh, especially prior to reality television, you'd see kind of the ideal without understanding, like there was rarely any struggle, in the age of the Brady Bunch, which you mentioned when we were talking earlier. It sets this like, oh, you can be this perfect little blending a family, two parents that have got 3 kids each. We know that is not going to be easy. And sure, they showed some of the little bumps that they hit, but honestly, like nothing like what you would actually.
So let's dive into that right there. Is the first thing with parenting, the media, and the way that we are going through our daily lives, and how sometimes you hit bumps in the road. And I know for me personally, when I don't hit this expectation that I want to be, that where I want to be as a father, it sticks with me. But sometimes I feel, and I don't know if some people are listening to the show, that we set these bars way too high because we are human beings. As much as I'm a dad, I'm also a human being that makes mistakes and it's capable. And we've talked about that on the show. When you have the blowout, to repair it, to acknowledge that. I always use the example of, this would just be an example of like an expectation. When we first brought home my daughter, little teeny person wrapped up in that blanket. You remember they do that burrito wrap? And you're just like, boom. What's that wrap called? Remember that?
Yes. It's called swaddling.
Okay.
Yes.
I called it the burrito wrap, and I would just wrap her like, boom. I was so good at it. But I remember when I came home, and my expectation as a dad was I was just going to be on like full time. And for the first, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, I was cutting fresh fruit every morning for Karen. You remember when I told you that?
Yes, I do.
I was making breakfast.
I love it. And then you're like, oh boy, she's going to stay. Like I don't have the stamina. I thought I was running, you know, a 6K, not a marathon.
Yeah. I had the idea that, I'm going to raise her in 2 months and we're done. Like I thought like, you move. I didn't know. And then at one point I walked into her room. I'll never forget it. Like 4 a.m. and we're 6 weeks in, just 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like you're not leaving. You're here forever.
Yes.
Which at that moment was the beginning of me, I think, realizing the expectation that I had as a father was this perfect, never get upset, never feel frustrated guy. And I know that some people are like, why would you be that way? But it was almost the way the picture was painted in my head of what I needed to be as a father.
Right.
So that would be what I'm saying when I say managing your expectations.
Yeah. So, okay. So the first thing I want to say, and I think that, this is a good exercise to do as a couple, whether you're, married, not married, certainly if you're getting married, and definitely if you are married. And then I think this is a conversation that should be had repeatedly when you're getting ready to have children. And if you already have kids, just try it tonight with your partner.
So couples, partners, anybody, you're saying this is something you should do.
Here's what I think we need to do. And this shifts it a little bit away from expectation, which is something that we usually, like to your point, we need to look at. Like write down, like what are my expectations and where have those come from? Because that will usually
did that before kids.
Put them into perspective.
That's a great idea. I love that.
The second thing is, and we can talk a little bit more about kind of the minutia that is woven into that, when you start to look at what are my expectations and where have they come from and which ones do I actually want to keep and which ones do I need to be like, oh, that's not actually me. That's like something I heard my dad say when I was 10 or something that was hurtful to me that, no matter what, I'm not letting that happen in my house. But so start there. And then I think where we really want to move to is setting intentions that are going to be constantly evolving. So, and it's really a beautiful thing to be able to sit down and do that with your partner. I mean, this is the whole, I think the best part of, I know in the Catholic Church, I don't know, did you and Karen get married in the Catholic Church?
Yes.
Okay. So then you probably did the whole marriage class thing, right?
Yeah. No, what we had to have happen was at the time, I want to say when we got married in the church, we kind of did on the DL because the guy would. No, I know you're like.
Of course you did.
What's going on? No,
Yep.
I got married when we got married in the church. We didn't end up taking the classes.
Okay, because I think
because we I just want everyone to know was time permitting. We had to get married at a certain time, and the priest was super cool. And I broed down with him, and he was like, "Check it out. I've known you since you were a kid." And he totally, isn't that crazy? I got the priest to be like, "It's cool."
Yes, yeah.
And you know what's really weird? He's no longer a priest anymore. He really isn't.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know.
No, but what I think is valuable about that is before we step into this enormous commitment, and I would argue that having children is an even bigger commitment than marriage. Not that it's not about easier or harder. It's a bigger commitment in that, as we all know, those of us who have already had children, that kid comes and you're like, oh, this is freaking forever.
Yeah.
if my marriage goes sideways, there's divorce court. There's no divorcing my child. Like, I'm in it until the day that I die.
That's a great point.
And so if there was ever a time.
So what you're saying is that one thing you brought up just really quick with the church was we took all these classes before we got married. A lot of people listening to the show, partners, you spend time together. What you're saying is there really isn't that when you have a child with someone.
And I'm not just talking about like parenting classes or marriage classes, meaning like somebody's like who's an alleged expert telling you, here's what you need to do to be a good spouse. Here's what you need to do to be a good parent. I'm talking about on a very personal level with your partner, sitting down and saying, what matters most to you? What matters most to me? How might those things play out? Where, again, just like with the expectations, where do those values come from? And how might it look for us to support each other in implementing these things that, like, I think it's really, really important that we have a super structured environment, or I found it really stifling in my home to have a super structured environment. So let's try to find a happy medium together. Whatever you do, I think that when we generally set expectations that set us up for disappointment and or failure, and we find ourselves in situations where we're like, wow, how did we get here? Because we didn't enter this journey consciously in saying for ourselves and with our partner, here's what I think we should work on.
It's straight out of the movie Parenthood. Steve Martin, when Keanu Reeves' character says, "Hey, if you want to go fishing, you got to get a fishing license, but they'll let anyone have a kid."
Sorry, side note.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves was in Parenthood?
Yeah.
Did you know about my thing for Keanu Reeves?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, no, we won't get too much.
Is that another show?
Now. It might be another show. No, I'm not I'm not into celebrity men at all, but there's something about Keanu. Anyway, side note.
You kind of just said you are into celebrity men. You just, by saying you're not, you just said you did. No, but in that one, do you ever feel that you do not have enough time in the day to do what you're supposed to get done? You're going to work. You're maybe trying to hit the gym, but you forgot that, I got to pick so-and-so up from daycare. Oh, I got to get my dad over to his doctor's appointment. Oh, I wanted to pick up the house before I left. Wow, check it out. How am I going to get everything done? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Go to care.com. Care.com. Care.com is the world's largest digital marketplace for finding and managing family care. That is right. Family care needs can be unpredictable. You got sick kids. You need someone to stay home. Man, both parents are out there trying to make a living. Your kids get sick. Oh, who's going to stay home? Who's going to miss out on that cash? Now you go to care.com and they'll have someone for you that can look after your kids. Don't stress your life away. Seriously, most working parents worry about their kids every minute of the day. You're more at ease and more focused when you know your kids or your parents or even your pets are well cared for. Best part is this, care.com provides access to a variety of background check options you can purchase to help make sure that you're making the best hiring decision. That's my favorite part right there. They're letting you know there's a million different things for you to check out on the background check options so you know who's going to be there with your kids or with your parents or with your pet taking care of the situation. Care.com. Check it out now. If you go to care.com right now, you ready for this? To save 30% off care.com premium membership, visit care.com/rad parenting when you subscribe, and you're going to get 30% off. Like I said, the world's moving a million miles an hour. You just want to take care of your kids and all the responsibilities. Let care.com help. But in that one part of the movie when he says that, even before I had kids, I was like, wow, what a great point. You got to get a fishing license if you want to drive a car.
Yes.
It just goes back to when you and I first started doing this, and we were talking about something to do with either my son or my daughter, and you used the analogy of, hey, you're a surfer. You wouldn't let them just paddle out into the ocean and just tackle that on their own.
Yep.
So what you're saying is, and I wrote this down, which I love, is it's not so much expectations, is it's really sitting down and finding out what your intentions are with your partner, with bringing this person into the world.
That's right.
With the person that's our child.
Yes. And to be clear, that does not mean that if you already have kids that are 5, 10, 15, whatever, that you're like, whoa, screwed that one up, can't go back. You absolutely can. Every single day is a new day that we participate in creating. And this is part of conscious parenting, is sitting down, just like when we were talking about the sex ed episode, and this has happened in so many different topics that we've talked about, we first have to look at ourselves as human beings. What am I bringing to the table? What do I actually want to keep? Because I can see it's coming from a place of strength and a place of, health and well-being. And what is my baggage from my own childhood that I need to work on maybe in therapy, or I need to talk about with my partner, but I don't need to bring it to this other separate human being's journey in the world. I am here to guide and support and provide that yummy mix of I'm going to keep you safe while giving you enough room to discover who you are and explore. And then you start to roll with it. And you understand that sometimes having expectations actually kills the flow.
Absolutely.
That is the animation for the intentions that
Absolutely.
we set.
Because what I know, at least with me personally, I find myself whenever I had those expectations early on, I always thought that the parenting moments that were going to be the most important, I always joke around. It would be like, we're at the kitchen table, the lighting's perfect, we've all eaten a great meal, and now my son or daughter is going to ask me some crazy question about life, and I'm just going to hit back so much knowledge. Whereas, at least in my house, no one, all we're doing at the table half the time is joking around. There's no seriousness going on. And then we've had dinners where I'm like, come on guys, let's get serious. And then they're like, looking at me like, Dad,
what?
Yeah. You're like,
yes.
Okay, Mr. Funny Man, now we're going to be serious on Sunday night.
And if you were sitting there with an expectation, like this is going to be this great, family dinner where we're going to have some deep moments.
I've ruined dinners because of that. I've ruined family dinners. No, I did.
Probably missed opportunities when some beautiful little gem just sort of dropped, out of the sky or out of wherever. I call it connecting with the divine. Like there's this moment of you're like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. We're totally getting each other, and moving with that instead of well, this is supposed to happen right now.
Can I tell you what I call that?
Not?
Can I tell you what I call that? And I'm totally guilty of it. Forced connection.
Yes.
Like when I try to force a connection with my kid, when I try to force hey, let's talk about this right now. Hey, let's talk about what's going on at school. And hey, I want to teach you all about sex ed right now. And your kid's just like, what are you talking about?
And they feel the energy, and they're either going to comply as briefly as possible, or they're going to shut you down.
Can I throw this out there? Just being 15 years into the ride.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine give me the best advice as a dad I'd ever gotten. He has 2 teenagers, they're ahead of us. And I was telling him about this scenario. I'm always trying to set up these moments of wisdom. And he goes, Joe, check it out. I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to those moments happening, trust me, they're going to happen at the most inopportune time on your end. Mm-hmm. And when they do happen, you're like a fireman. You have to go into full on mode. You have to okay, you know how you see the fireman slide down the pole? But check it out. I remember it was with my daughter. I had just flown back from I'd flown out for a show to New York, flew back on the red eye. I'm just walking in. I'm sitting in the same, okay, boom. I'm literally
time to chill.
I'm sitting on the couch all right, all I'm going to do right now at this moment is not, I think I even said, I'm not talking to anybody. And then at that moment, my daughter hit me up with, hey, Dad, you know what I was thinking? You and I can maybe go. And she had a place she wanted me to take her to and hang out.
Yeah.
And I was this close. The words started coming out of my mouth of, are you kidding? I just and all of a sudden my friend's voice, Joe, it'll come at the worst time. And I remember, wow, it's happening right now. And as a dad, I've shared that with other dads. And it those moments of spending time with our kids, or when they ask you questions.
Yes.
I've had times where I'm watching, a baseball game with my son. We got the Giants and Dodgers on. We got the food out. Here we go. And it's the bottom of the 6th inning, and he just throws a crazy bomb
a big life question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking life question. You guys fill in the blank. Okay. Yeah. Are you filling in the blank? I'm talking bottom of the 6th inning.
Yeah.
Here we go, 2 outs. And I'm like, whoa, now we're not talking about Hunter Pence anymore.
Nope.
We're this is, and I've had those moments where I'm like, wow. And once again, my expectation was those conversations were never going to happen.
Yeah, that was going to happen when you were having a cool,
road trip.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times I've sat, I got my son up front with me, and we were on a road trip, driving up north or something, and I'm like, hey, we're going to have this really in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just no, we're not.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
it's going to happen at the bottom of the sixth.
Oh yeah, it's always no, yeah. It'll be like, we got tickets to the World Series. Hey, Dad, I want to talk to you about my girlfriend. I think she's pregnant. Whoa, here. That's
right
where you're.
here.
Okay. But you drop in at those moments, and I feel that what you said is so true. That I personally need to work more on the intention. And maybe that helps some of our listeners right now, is that we all try to be the best mom, the best partner, the best dad. And we set up these expectations sometimes in our heads that we don't even know where we got that information from.
There can be a rigidity to it. Yeah. If it's like, these are my expectations. Why? Just because this is what I've always envisioned. And it just kills the ability to be able to be in the moment, sliding down the pole when you need to, making the most. I mean, you're dealing with a human being. Yeah. There isn't, as much as we want to feel safe with like scripts are so limiting, and they're just not realistic when it comes to our children. We are going to limit their movement through the world, their self-discovery, their desire to come and have, spur of the moment conversations about big topics, and it's a good lesson for us too, because I think sometimes the further we move into adulthood, we sort of start moving, in this, sort of rat race. Like, we're just like, this is what I do every day. I get up and I go to work and I blah, blah.
It's hard though. It's hard, especially right now with everyone trying to make ends meet, people working, people trying to get everyone to baseball practice and fall ball practice and to and from school and making it all happen. That when you do say, scripts are so limiting, I know for me, sometimes a script is just so much, I'm a neat freak. It's just so easy to follow the script. They can be
essential. I think it's just important that we call that out and we say, you know what? We need to have a plan, 100%. I always use the analogy of like, here's your starting point and there's your destination. And if you're just kind of like, we'll see, we'll see where the roads take us. It could take you like, 10 days when you've got 5. And so there's something about the efficiency and really being able to make the most of each day by having some structure and a script of some sort, but always with a willingness and a readiness to like drop in, as you say, when your kids or when circumstances say, nope, not today, we're doing this. And when we resist that, we lose beautiful opportunities.
And I go back to what you mentioned, those opportunities when they present themselves, they really are gifts from the universe. You said it's a connection to the divine. Yep. I feel that it's what as a songwriter, I remember working with a producer, Daniel Ray, and he told me, he said, look, man, when you have that connection and you're writing a song, you're really getting a gift from the universe. And what ends up happening is a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you know what? I got that melody memorized. Oh, I'll work on those lyrics later. And what his whole thing was, he said, no, man, you have to see it all the way through. Now, obviously, people like Bob Dylan, they have a huge connection to the divine. Joe Sib, not so much.
Don't sell yourself short, Joe.
But my point being is, now as a parent and as a father, I realize when those opportunities from my son or daughter present themselves, those are the moments now from the universe saying, hey man, this is what you wanted. You're getting an opportunity for it.
Yep.
Let's drop into it.
Yep.
And it's more about your intentions instead of setting up these expectations that I feel that are super hard to stay at. Because like I told you guys at the beginning, I was good for 6 weeks with being this guy that was chopping. I was Jack Alain. Does anyone remember Jack Alain? That like super fit dude?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I was like super dad at that point, and it doesn't last.
Yeah,
it doesn't last. Whereas I love what you said about the intentions, sitting down with your partner and going, what are our intentions here?
And remembering that there are ebbs and flows constantly in life. So you are going to go through, oh my God, we're so in the flow. Our kids are so great. I'm killing it as a parent. And all of a sudden you're going to hit an ebb. And you know what? The ebbs are necessary for the flows. It's just, they're connected. And I think if we can, take a moment to recognize that and be a little more gentle with ourselves, we will also end up behaving in a way that is modeling more healthy behavior for our kids, again, to avoid expectations and rigidity that cause us to miss beautiful moments in life.
Love it. That was fast. In and out.
Boom.
Right there. Boom. Hey, want to thank everyone for listening to the show. Thank you guys so much. It's been an amazing year. We're coming out we're close to our 1 year. It'll be our 1 year anniversary in February. So it's not that close, but it's not that far away. Got to thank everyone for all of the emails. Please keep them coming. You can always email us at radparenting@gmail.com. Also keep the reviews going up there on iTunes and spread the word. One of the things that Anea and I, before even doing the show today, was how can we get more people listening to what we're doing here and sharing in the community of what rad parenting is all about. And the best way is when you guys share the show. I don't know if you found out about it from our Facebook page or if it's just something you found on iTunes, but if you can share the show, we appreciate it so much because then that way we get better ideas from the listeners and it continues to grow. And we really dig the community of listeners that you guys are really all about. It's really given us so many ideas. Like we're going to have our sleep training show.
Yes.
Is that in 2 weeks? I think it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And that was a request from you guys.
And I think that the other thing to remember is that when you become a conscious parent and you are incorporating some of the things that we talk about here, it's always easier when you have other parents in your community, in your circle, both in terms of just having somebody to run things by, and then also in terms of your kids playing together and like, oh, well, we know that, their household is basically on the same page. Our household is, they're conscious parents, we're conscious parent, blah, blah, blah. It's just easier when you're not doing it alone. So another very practical reason to sort of spread the word and get more people on the rad parenting tip.
Absolutely. With that said, we are going to split. My name is Joe Sib.
And Anea Bo.
And we'll see you guys all next week.